huge fan of the Western genre. To see a character like Sandra not only represented on screen, but portrayed with such a nuanced strength was incredibly empowering. So thank you to the three of you. I truly loved this film so much. Yeah. So
Wow.
congratulations.
Amazing. Can I just ask you something?
Yes, please.
Don't mind. You said it was empowering for you. Can
Mm.
you just say a bit more about that? Why?
Yeah, I think
For you personally.
yeah, for me. Well, thank you for asking. I grew up with two older brothers who were 9 and 10 years older than me. And so I grew up with like Unforgiven, for example, was one of my favorite films. And um I I always thought that, especially with Westerns, because there's such a delicate nature to them, they're so nuanced and um that to see to see a female in these types of roles was inspiring, and not only to give me strength in my life to kind of remember to I don't want to get too into it because I'm gonna let me jump into this. I'm gonna jump into a question.
But I just love. I'm sorry. I've kind of asked myself a question via you, but this because we're both women,
Yeah.
and because I'm compelled.
Hmm.
I just think it's fascinating to me that you identified with her. You're not even talking about race right now.
Mhm.
You're not even. It doesn't occur to you, and how significant that is. Because I agree with you. You felt a direct line to this person that
Mhm.
spoke to you about where you have been positioned in your life, and there was no barrier to feeling that. And
Hmm.
that is everything.
Oh, that's
Everything. This is the first interview we've had, the
oh,
three of us. This is the
oh
very first.
wow. Oh
And
God,
it's
I'm
Yeah.
so honored and grateful to be able to be your first and to have these
we're honored.
conversations.
We're honored. We're honored. I mean, I swear to God, actually, we're honored just because the film has given us this opportunity. Because the film exists separate from all of us on this call.
Mm. Mm. Yep. And if we can't see it on screen, we can't have these conversations. This film will allow, well, I think this film too is so much about educating. And not only are we,
But not preaching.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
But even
educating.
though it literally has preaching in the freaking movie, it's not about preaching. In fact, we always, all of us, when he starts up, the preacher in the movie, we're all like, ah, ah. And he was a real preacher. God bless him, the loveliest people.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was great.
really?
So many
Oh
of
yeah.
the cast, and these guys will tell you, so many of the cast were
Oh,
regular
it was
people.
a group of people that we not only had a great time working with. The whole team really was quite committed to telling this story. I mean, it wasn't just a gig. I felt like the people that came to work on it really believed in what the
Twice.
movie was. Twice, yeah.
Yes.
Twice. And the second time was way harder, people. Whew. And we couldn't wait.
Yeah, you were ready. You were ready. Well, let's go back to talking about because I think as women, we are constantly being undermined, and it's exhausting when we see that exhaustion in this film. We see how when that those feelings are repressed, it leads usually out of fear. It leads to that unhappiness. Speaking of the church scene, that's brought up in that scene, that beautiful scene, that unhappiness that you know that occurs. Thandiwe Sandra, but she makes a different choice in this film. She's at a place where she can eliminate that fear. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. Because every time you say fear, it doesn't hit right.
Mm,
Every time you say it, it's really interesting. She's not afraid.
yeah.
Agreed.
She's an educator. She's an educator in her core. That's why she was a cop. She's an educator. She's there to help create balance. That is her role as a human. Not that she made a decision for that, but it's clear to me. She is at her core. She's an educator. Um, and as a result, you have to be careful about when you suggest changes. You have to be careful the best way to educate is to inspire and to just sort of give options, perhaps, share so that the other can learn. But when you share, it's not about oppressing, it's about presenting, it's about using yourself as an example. And suddenly she's no one can hear her. No one's listening. No one, literally, like she's talking. Are you hearing me? Like literally. And I don't think she's afraid. It's not fear. It's devastation at not being heard, and as a result, not being able to
100%
help, aid.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of health. Actually, it's the opposite of health.
Yeah, and that is related to what Shaye and I were thinking of when we started writing this, was that idea of like what happens to a person, any person, when it is impossible for them to be heard or really seen or and regarded as a fellow human being.
When they might have benefit. Well, of course they do. Every living thing is part of this relationship, and that's why the fact that the movie is placed in nature at its most raw is hugely significant.
Yeah.
It is hugely significant. I mean, there's the mountains and the trees. I'm gonna cry, man. Shit, already. That's what we need a safe word for. We were talking last night. We need a safe word. We need a safe word for tears. Because, dude, woof.
I love tears.
No, honey. No.
You're talking to
we've been through
criers here.
We've been through it.
I mean, I went through it while we watched
it. I feel like the landscape is bearing witness. Someone sent me the most incredible, I've got to tell you guys, actually. It was my husband, actually, sent the most extraordinary quote about trees. Julian, well, Shaye probably will know this. Sorry. Anyway, you guys carry on talking. I'm going to look for this.
Well, I was just saying, to go off of what you were saying, Thandiwe, the Montana is this, well, first of all, God's country, right? The definition of God's country is a beautiful rural area, but also the sticks. Then I think that, Montana in itself is this beautiful landscape, but underneath all that beauty, there is a pain that is hidden. And it allows for this mixture of light and dark, of kind of exploring human nature to come through. And I think you get this in this film. This film has to go back to that church scene, which is one of my favorite scenes in the film, which really took me by surprise. How human, and how you have these two people that couldn't be any different who come together for a second and relate to each other. And you see this glimmer of light, this glimmer of connection, to a pure raw connection. And then you have these really ugly, heartbreakingly, which is unfortunately the other side of humanity to this film. Why was it important to kind of strike that balance when writing the script, when making this movie, the balance and the complexities of just human nature in general?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're touching on the thing that was most important to us, which is, I think a lot of these themes get taught. I mean, it's obviously, these are the themes of our times. And, a lot of people are talking about these things. For me, I think the issue is we are so polarized as a society as it is. It becomes very easy to avoid participating in a real conversation, because you already know what you think, where you stand on all these things already. So for us, and this is getting back to your original point, that is, like, I happen to think the best way to get people to think differently than they already are is through an emotionally compelling human story.
Yeah.
And that is why we did it this way. We really wanted all the characters to be complex and as three-dimensional as we could make them, because that makes it hard. It makes it challenging. You actually have to second guess the opinions you thought you had. And I think that's where that scene came from, was the idea that, we get to see for a second, these people could bridge their differences if they just redefined the tribe a little bit, you know? They actually are the same tribe, and
Yeah.
you see that potential is there and they just can't quite do it.
And literally the planet is forcing the reality of that. If you look at, the horrific migrants, being swept up onto the shores, it's the planet is literally forcing that reality of oneness,
Coming together.
forcing us to recreate boundaries, and they're imagined boundaries. All nations are imagined boundaries. It is, it's an illusion. So if this surface reality that we've created, that man has created, is an illusion, we get to rewrite it potentially, and it's not something that ever happens quickly. We're in a time where there's this bizarre idea that things can change rapidly, and they are changing rapidly, no doubt, but real change is slow to come. And again, you see these conversations in the past, whether it's Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., rapid versus slow, and you've got these, and it creates an energy which we clearly need. But it keeps happening though. There is this idea that if it's not happening today, it's not changed. We're not going to see it in our lifetimes. That's the other thing. We have to start realizing that our children are in us, and it's their future and their children's future that matters. And this idea, and I think it is capitalism. It is, Thatcher and Reagan and all of it. This idea that in your lifetime you get everything that you want, and it's just not. It's creating desperate to depression. Desperate. And you look at great culture. I mean, listen. One of the things I really, I'm so grateful for this movie is how it touches on Native American, culture, and only the very tip of the iceberg. But just the wisdom of those learnings. The wisdom in that of 7-year cycles, and how everything we do to our planet, we should be thinking about 7 generations ahead. I mean, Jesus, we can't even think about ourselves in our 50s without freaking out. Let alone 7 generations of fucking head. Jesus Christ.
I think,
holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, hearing you speak about change too, and it not happening overnight, and it reminds me kind of the Christmas tree farm scene a lot, where there's a beautiful build in this film where Sandra exudes a lot of restraint and a beautiful patience in that scene, where she really tries to connect and understand in that moment. And you can see that she's just like fighting for that change. She's like, she's giving it her all. And like I said,
trying to communicate.
Yeah, trying to communicate, and the will
doesn't work. Literally, you see it. It plays out in front of you. There's Wolf, who's getting so hot. He's just hot under the collar.
He is so hot-headed.
Everybody can identify with that as you react.
Yeah.
I want to say,
right?
As men, and this is something that's really true in the Western genre. As men, a lot of times we only know how to communicate through violence, whether that's physical, verbal, whatever you want to say. And so, like, it was important in that scene to show this woman in the midst of all this masculine energy, all these men, just literally communicate with words and emotion. And it's that simple act that quells this rage. These young men are righteously angry, but for once somebody is actually talking to them. And so that's very important.
Right. Inevitably, we're going to talk over each other here, but I did want to add, like, that is something. Like, Shaye, this is the thing, is when Shaye and I wrote that scene, we had this concept that there would be this escalation between these this testosterone fused escalation between all these men, and then Sandra would bring that the ability to actually de-escalate the situation because of what she knows and what she's experienced. But I was surprised when we shot it, the empathy that Thandiwe brought to that scene. It actually was no longer a scene about de-escalation.
Yeah.
We had thought for years. It actually became a scene about her really seeing them and modeling that for them.
Because empathy is the communication. It's
Yes.
like having that empathy in her heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talk
good.
about empathy all the time.
Yeah.
We talk about how much it's needed in our world, but it's actually incredibly difficult to look in the face of the person that is the enemy and actually see them as a human being.
And I think that's why for me, that was a turning point. I mean, you had these scenes where I was so refreshingly and beautifully surprised and taken on this journey that I did not expect. And that's kind of a sad thing that we haven't gotten really those beautiful moments of empathy depicted on screen like this, but that's what y'all have done.
Well,
And
it's so interesting just to go back. Literally, we shot that scene in the second phase of shooting. So we're talking about a year of wanting to play these scenes. I mean, Jesus God, it's pretty hard, like trying to hold off an orgasm for a year. So
I gotta steal that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the screen.
By the way, I'm proof that it's possible. But anyway, no, truly, I mean, really, what germinated inside each one of us actually is something we should definitely touch on. But that scene, I was most scared of that scene. The whole movie, that was the one I was most actually scared of. I'm scared of all scenes, obviously. That's part of the excitement of creativity, is to be afraid, to be in awe and do it anyway. And it's that effort of beating your fear that actually creates the magic, I've got to say. And we talked about it, and not endlessly, but we talked about each scene a lot. And we came to it, and it was just before we started shooting that scene. I think I was driving to the set, and it just clicked. I suddenly realized I needed to appeal to them. I needed to appeal to their better selves. And I realized, and it was because it was something I was going through in my life, literally, And we did do the scene, and we did it first time, and I'll never forget Julian. It makes me want to cry because I love Julian deeply, and the gift he's given me with this film. Both of you guys, Shaye and Julian, but particularly Julian, because to trust a director for me is a profoundly challenging thing. And so we did the scene. And I'll never forget Julian's face, because it was completely not what he expected. And yet he was like, but that's it. And he trusted. And it was magical.
It was a magical moment because it was such a difficult scene to set up. Because
so hard.
On top of the, the fact that we were now shooting in a pandemic and
everyone
had
bright sunshine. Bright sunshine.
Also, we're far away from each other, and like it was a nightmare to kind of set up, and it took forever. And I was like, we're never gonna finish this scene. There's so much work to do. We spent 4 hours staging it, Yeah. And then the first take of it, I saw what everyone was bringing to the table, and I saw what Thandiwe just spoke about, what she had realized, and I saw her interpretation of the scene, and I suddenly went from "we're never gonna finish this" to "oh, this is a really good scene." It was quite
so good. It was such a surprise. It was but that did happen very, very often. The surprises, like there's this one. Can I just indulge just for 1 sec? There's this one shot that we did at the end. You remember the end of the day, and it was nighttime, and it was me running in the dark. People, in the motherfucking dark, and it's icy and muddy and weird, and I couldn't see my feet, and I was literally attached on a tether to the back of the truck to keep me at the right distance for focus, and I couldn't see. And I had this light on my head, I think, guys, as I was running, and it was the end, and everyone was like, "No, we're never gonna get it," and I was like, "Come on!" And we were like, "Let's do it!" And literally, we just did it as we were leaving the set, and it's there.
Yeah.
It's in the movie, in the dark, and it's so cool because literally the light. The way the light looks, it looks like a huge eye looking at all of looking at. Oh,
There were many
man.
moments where when we were like, I think we probably need to leave this location. Thandiwe was like, we just do one more.
No, got this. Well, that's called trust. I mean, and y'all, I'm gonna get emotional because y'all you've given such a gift. You've given yourselves and a gift to us, gift to me. I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You'll have a
Please
lot.
do.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I could, but
I'm not going anywhere.
Faith, the character Faith says, that's another amazing scene. Sitting around.
Faith. She did that she delivered that exquisitely every single time.
Yeah.
Every time.
She was, yeah.
Masterclass.
Yeah, that was powerful. And she says to her colleagues, in a very, and you can tell she's just she's
getting woke.
She's really like, she's getting woke, but also like, that's where I think like she had that fear that I think
Yes.
100%.
That doesn't have the fear. She's got nothing left to lose, man. Her mom's dead.
And how cool, and that's where the empowering comes from, to answer your question in the beginning. How cool to see a woman who has a limited, that there's no fear, and what is the possibilities. But anyways, Faith, right, says learning to me is asking questions and challenging yourself. Simple yet true.
Yes.
What was made, how has making this film, well, what I should say, what has making this film taught y'all most about yourselves? And what was the biggest way in which y'all challenged yourselves?
I've talked too much, so I think I've already answered that in some ways.
Julian, Shaye, this is
Shaye, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Well, I have like I'm truly
full. This is kind of an impossible question because
yeah.
No, but that's why it's so good. Go on, Shaye. On you, son.
Could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I'm answering it.
What did making this film teach you most about yourselves? Let's start there.
Well, I guess for me, my first thought is just like I'm not from the Mountain West. I've grown up mostly around urban areas. And I've driven. I've had the privilege of driving through America, and I do understand the idea or the myth of once you get outside these cities, that's God's country, right? And it's like someone said earlier, like underneath that is a lot of. I see that specifically from my own perspective when I drive through the country. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of history. There's carnage, for lack of a better word, underneath all of that.
Yeah.
And so for me. I think when we talk about empathy, I go into these scenarios with a certain set of prejudices, beliefs, or whatever. And the thing that I wanted to address in this movie, the thing that has taught me is that to have empathy, even for people that I detest or I disagree with or whatever. Like the thing I wanted to show is everybody has an experience. Everybody has their own story. Everybody has a perspective. I may disagree with you. We may be, enemies ideologically, but at the end of the day, I wanted to, like, especially like being in nature, I wanted to be able to have empathy and to be able to tell a human story. I feel like that answered the question. I feel like I went on a tangent there. So.
Yeah,
but how has it changed you?
How's it changed me?
Yeah.
Hey, how has it changed you?
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it's changed me.
Can I say something?
I think what we should do is we should answer for each other.
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't keep tabs on my changes.
There's something I'd love to get Shaye to talk about because it meant a lot to me. I think I said this a little bit to Julian yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman of color, being encountered by a brother in my work, a man of color in my work, to be at this close to, like, I've missed Shaye. Shaye's like, he was there and then he was moving on. He moved on, and You know, J.J. Abrams snapped him up. Okay? And I mean, he's a smart man, J.J. Abrams. And we're never going to see Shaye again.
You're gonna see
No, but it is relevant because,
Mhm.
and I actually love that Shaye wasn't there too much because,
Mhm.
but having the love, the support, and the validation from another person of color, but also to witness Shaye, and I won't, because it's personal shit. We talk deep shit about ourselves. To witness Shaye reckon with his own pain as a man of color, and the fact that one of the ways he healed and soothed it was by empowering this woman, this black woman. That it helped Shaye as a black man to empower a black woman. And what that says.
Wow.
What that says. It doesn't take away from Shaye. It doesn't take away that he placed a woman, that he and also that it just in terms of, because, you know, I feel crappy in a way that I'm bringing it up, race, but I am going to, because it's very significant.
Yeah.
I know the truth to this performance, this movie, this character, mainly because of Shaye.
Mm.
You know, and I know that it's changed Shaye. It's the man I'm seeing now, the strength in him, the stature, the base. I witnessed that happen on this movie. I witnessed it happen. That's what I'm going to say about Shaye.
That's incredibly beautiful. Thank you
Mm.
for sharing that. And I was
Thank you.
just thinking of your little daughter while she was saying that, Shaye, that we started this conversation talking
I'm
about.
his daughter. I'm his daughter. He basically showed his daughter how extraordinary black women are.
Exactly.
What a gift! What a gift! What a gift to his girl. This movie
Wow.
is. Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
lucky.
She said it. Like I don't know. I don't keep tabs on my changes, but yeah, I do. I feel that. I feel like I'm a different person. I'm a different man. I'm a different black man than I was before we started this movie, and than I am now. I'm a different creator. I'm a different storyteller. And to Thandiwe's point, like I've been raised by mostly women, and so because of that, it's been my manifesto and my work to center women, and specifically women of color, and specifically black women in big genre storytelling. You know what I mean? And so for me, this was the dream of my life, to write a Western, a modern Western, you know, and to center, basically, like, Sandra is very much inspired by women in my life, and specifically like my mother. And so yeah, I guess that in that way, yeah, it has changed me.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. They're telling me that y'all have an interview.
Yeah, sorry.
You're gonna be
Yeah.
no. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I was so happy to just hear that. I do not need to. Those answers will do it.
I feel like I just feel this incredible peace and calm. I
Mm.
really do. Thank you so much for encountering us and allowing us to have this.
Thank you.
You know,
No,
really
thank
a
you.
safe
Thank you very
space.
much.
A safe space to talk
Yeah.
about this thing which matters more to us than, well, more to me than any film I've ever made before.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for giving us the gift of, and thank you so much for your art. And it's going to change a lot of people's lives, and it truly will educate and create empathy. So I'm so thankful.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you so
Very
much.
much.